Okay, let's resume this meeting now. I have a question quickly. So the rest of the province manages to accommodate the film industry without any legislation or bylaws or anything. I guess I just wonder why we can't fit into that model, so to speak.
Thank you. Where there was very active filming taking place, we spoke to those areas and they all have film permitting process. They have a film permitting process.
So if we have a film permit process and that provides us with some sort of protection in terms of what's happening on the set, is that open to any kind of interpretation by staff or, you know?
The process in building the policy will identify that and address it during the time. I couldn't, without a policy developed right now, answer that. Our goal, though, is that we would model ourselves after those very successful building permit processes that are around here and in the Lower Mainland, which have a very quick turnaround time and is very reliable on the indemnification and hold no harm that film permits bring. So our goal is that it would alleviate the burden on staff to make decisions, and the film permitting process would be addressing that in a timely manner.
Thank you.
Vivian.
Thank you. So now I understand that, first of all, Squamish already has the film permitting process and Whistler does. And so we could certainly borrow from our member municipalities, I would hope. Pemberton actually has a commercial going on at the golf course right now for, I think, BMW. Does Pemberton have a film permitting process?
Yeah, right.
Right, we have a, it's very basic though.
So I like the sounds of these basic ones that we could borrow and have a quick turnaround. In area B, they tend to film in some of our most dramatic landscapes, and probably the biggest risk is around traffic control. And so this is somewhat maybe from the southern. Okay, I'd like to see the policy at the EAD, and I'd like to see it go before the policy committee. But generally, I'm supportive of having a film permitting process.
Chris and then Jack.
Yeah, I can't remember the name now, not service establishment. Or maybe that is the term I'm looking for, but that seems quite restrictive in terms of what you can change after something's established. So how much has to go in that in terms of fees and requirements versus how much can go into a policy which the board can sort of adjust as needed? Like, where's the line there? So if we sort of establish a global service establishment, that's got the minimal, and then we've got this sort of flexible policy.
Thank you. I can do my best interpretation without Director Clark here, and it's that right now to establish it, it needs approval by the area directors individually, and that's it. So I would assume that any amendments to it would follow the same, but under follow-up, I could answer that.
Jack, and then.
I have a resolution, so if he has a question.
Okay, Tony, go ahead. Sal, okay. Sal, just a minute.
Yeah, sort of a comment really. I started off, I was talking about filming that is well established in Area D right now. Before I went any further with this, I would want to sit down with the Mining Museum and talk to them about it and see what their feeling is and get some sort of recommendation from them. I want to sit down and talk to Tiger Bay and to the Ferry Creek Golf Club. And get some input from the two community associations in Ferry Creek and Britannic Beach. So I want to really get I'm guessing at partly on what they might feel about this. So I want to talk to them and be informed. Certainly the biggest concern I have, my two concerns, one is the amount of time that could be involved. And the second one is, what it's gonna cost? Would it pay for itself with the fees? And once it's in place, does it really solve our any problems we might feel with park and so on? So there you go.
Sal and Ann Army.
Thank you. Now I've got a couple of questions. In area A, we have few provincial parks, and they require a filming permit. I'm just curious on, let's say, Caribou-Chilcotin Coast Tourism Association, providing videos for our tourism industry. Will they require filming permit? Community organizations that do videos. I myself do videos. Will all those require go through the filming permit process? Or is it just aimed at companies coming in to do filming in the area for whatever reason?
Thank you. We wouldn't be inserting ourselves in the already established film permitting process that the province has on public lands and parks. That would be outside of our jurisdiction. This is mainly focused on private lands and where the SLRD has jurisdiction.
You're muted, Sal.
Or if I could comment on that then, on Crown land. Does it apply on Crown land?
Yes, thank you. Public lands, Crown lands. There is a very well-established permitting process by the province. And we would not be inserting ourselves into that. It's not our jurisdiction, as I understand it, and I can get clarification as we kick the tires on this. Our goal is to be barrier-free and to remove the problems that are currently being faced. And if this does not meet that goal, we.
Thank you. There's a lot of overlapping, like many things we do, jurisdictions around, parks inside of the regional, inside of the regional district, these types of things. And I think those can be sorted out in our and other policies. In other film policies, there's area specific pieces that are about like wildlife attractants and is how that's managed on set. I think that's important, and arguably more so as we go deeper into the regional district from the urban centers. And I would like to see that included. Is that already something that it's included in, likely in all the member municipalities that have film permits? It's in there. Is that, can I assume that, or is there a specific direction that staff would require to include that piece in our work here?
Yes, you can assume the environmental impact would be, it's part of our strategic priorities, and it would be definitely addressed in the film permitting process. It is addressed in many of the other film permitting processes that we've looked at.
So for that, I think it's twofold. One is protecting wildlife from so that's bear-proof containers and like that, how that stuff is managed on set. These often come with a big craft services that is a big wildlife attractant. But I think another opportunity that I don't think is onerous, this is about, in my mind, facilitating and providing clarity, is around waste diversion. There is going to be a plan for, if they need to build something, there's going to be a plan for taking it apart and taking it somewhere. And that, I think, could be shared, and I think we could set some expectations of what that is. One of our conversations we just had here was about this. I do think that there's opportunity here to understand it. I don't want that to be onerous. I'm sure that the film industry has some objectives here, but I do think that if it's going to be operating inside of our area and ultimately maybe impacting those areas, these are things that we should consider as we develop this. Is that fall in that same category? Does that answer hold for my first question on this issue as well? Okay. Thank you for that clarity.
Tony,
I just need a bit of clarification here. Did I hear you say that we don't have any jurisdiction on private property?
No, pardon me, what I mean is provincial parks, they have a film permitting process.
Right, I get that.
We don't have we would not insert any jurisdiction there.
No, I understand that, but I thought I heard you say something about private property.
This applies to private property.
This applies to
It
private
doesn't.
property.
All right, thank you.
Jack, your motion.
So I'd like to make a motion that staff focus the development of the filming policy for the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District on holding no harm to the SLRD related to the construction of film sets and a process that provides a timely turnaround of permits. And if it's second, I'll speak to it.
Yeah, second.
I feel like we should be as restrained as we possibly can and as focused as we possibly can. We have a single problem and I think we should address it. I don't want to see this grow beyond the planter box it's in. It feels like the film industry has a tremendous amount of regulations around it that make sure that it's a beneficial industry to the province of British Columbia. And I think there are huge opportunities for our region to benefit. So I hope that this resolution suggests that we deal with the one issue we have and not add all kinds of other things into the process.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Do you need to mention, as I'm seeing in the report, that we would like staff to proceed with the service establishing bylaw? Because that seems to be what's required, to add that as a friendly amendment.
This, I hope, gives ability for staff to first talk to the community as Director Rainbow's talked about, and then, yeah, they'd have to bring us something like a service establishment bylaw if that's where we go. And then at that point, we would make a decision on the service establishment bylaw, in my view. You know, like we're not approving a service establishment bylaw here because we haven't seen
Harmon.
I'm supportive of this direction. I do think that I would like some actually clarity from the mover. Are you your motion is feels like it's very, very specific. The questions I had around, what happens on a set, wildlife attraction, so those things, you're like set those as your motion tends to set those pieces aside.
These locations have huge amounts of environmental oversight for all manner of things. And I think that should be left to those processes rather than overlaying another set of regulations on top of existing regulations. This deals with the problem that we have and hopefully doesn't create additional hoops to jump through that are dealt with through other processes. And I know for sure on a couple of those sites that the regulatory framework is robust.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that I agree with that. I think that because one of the things that happens to me when you apply for a permit is these are the permits you may need. You need a film permit that's going to look after, we've targeted this to mainly deal with the structures and that piece. However, if you plan to film between certain hours, you may need a noise exemption. It's an education piece as well that don't need to be rolled into the bylaw, into the film permit, but it's an education. This is what you need to film, but these are the other considerations. I think those other pieces can be handled through education and are likely sorted through professional regulation otherwise, like in their best practices. So I don't think it needs to be contained in here, but I do think it's an opportunity when they engage with us as an organization to set those expectations. Otherwise, where we do have bylaws that regulate these types of things, but they don't need to dumped all into the same one, so I'm okay with.
Jack and then Jenna.
And to Director Rainbow's point, they've been filming on these locations for 30 to 40 years. And this is one challenge we have found. Those other issues have been avoided, you know, and they're very capable organizations.
Through the chair, can I have somebody read the motions out again, please?
Yeah, that staff focus the development of the filming policy for the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District on holding no harm to the SLRD related to the construction of film sets and a process that provides a timely turnaround of permits.
Thank you for rereading that. I am curious, one of the requests in the staff report was to seek clarity on whether this was applicable to all electoral areas, or if that's a question that the mover suspects will come back with a draft service establishment bylaw, or is that something that we're seeking direction on today?
I think at this point, whether we develop it for all service areas or one, the work being done, we don't need that decision today.
That's helpful. Thanks for that clarity. On the motion that's on the floor, I'm happy to support it. I think, as the mover has mentioned, this helps to address some issues that we have experienced as of late, and provides a cleaner path for this really important industry in our corridor to adhere to local bylaws, expectations in a really succinct manner is the intent. Many of our member municipalities in the regional district have filming permit processes in place. They are simple, they are quick. And I think that we can model off of those. There's lots of good examples to draw from. So I suspect that hopefully this won't be a huge lift on our staff, but will provide the industry a clearer path and direction forward, and appreciate the work that's been put into this state. So happy to support. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. Moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 9.5, direction request, prioritization of proposed service establishments.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm here instead of Director Clark, who couldn't be here today to present her report on the prioritization of proposed service establishments. As you know, that the late last year or middle last year, the service establishment prioritization policy was adopted by the board. And what you see in front of you is that policy going through the decision-making tree and tools in order to prioritize these things. A request was to bring forward to the board last year a list of the current service establishments in the queue and what would the desire of the board is moving forward on prioritizing those. These service establishments reflect motions that are in the fuel to direct staff in order to do the work, the preliminary work in order to establish these services. Let me say that a lot. I'm here for any questions that I hope I can answer.
Mike and then Tony.
Thanks. The service establishment around recreation and the transfer of recreation services isn't on here. Is that just because it's all the way down the line? That's what I figured. Thank you.
Tony?
Yeah, this morning we had a report that included the service establishments, and it's got Black Tusk Water, Squamish Library, Squamish Food Policy Council, Britannia Beach Community Association. Got those three things on there as either in waiting or in process. But on this report, in attachment B, it's got two additional ones. One, the Squamish Recreation Service Phase 2 and Squamish Recreation Service Phase 3, which is on the wait list. My first question is, when did we decide that was a priority, that went ahead of some of these other things? I hear that our staff and Squamish district staff are working on that, and I wonder why. I'm glad to see it in the open now. It's not, what's being discussed is not common knowledge about in the community yet, but it will be. And I think it's been we received particularly well. I know we're at odds, we have different opinions around this table as to how money raised in Area D should be spent or could be spent in Squamish, regardless of the fact that we have a policy which says that amenities funds raised in an electoral area should be spent in that electoral area. So we're conveniently ignoring that at the moment. I don't think we should. We should deal with it. And we have an RGS which includes master plan communities in Britannia Beach and in Furry Creek. We want not bedroom communities, we want accommodation, but we want work experience, availability of work. We want recreation services. We want people to stay, to live, work and play in their community. We say that, and then we say, when we are raising money from amenities money, we want to spend that amenities money in Squamish. And we say, well, that's not going to affect the people that live in Furry Creek because they're not paying that tax. It's the new people coming in, because it does affect the people in Furry Creek. And we need more recreation possibilities and amenities in our community. And this kind of money is where we could get that from, where we could pay for those. So and I'll just say this, if we go further with this, if this at some point, I hope this comes to the community to see whether they approve. But it seems to me we're trying to sidestep that. We're trying to do it in such a way that the community is never going to get a chance to approve or disapprove of it. There's reference in the policy that the money should be spent on amenities that are benefit to people in Furry Creek. Who's going to make that decision? Is that our staff are going to say, here's an amenity that's happening in Squamish and it benefits you? Or are we going to ask the people in Furry Creek, do you think this is of benefit to you? So having said all that, if we're going to pursue this in the way we do right now, then we might as well take this Squamish Food Policy Council one, which is on the wait list, and the Public Library one, which is on the wait list, and push that to the back burner and as far back as you can possibly get it, because we wouldn't have a prayer of getting those approved if this other policy goes through. And then finally, tacked on the end there, we've got Britannia Beach Community Association. That's there because we as a collective group, the directors and the staff, didn't understand what we were doing when we said that we wanted the developer to provide a community hall. We didn't understand the implications of that. We discovered over a year ago what those implications are. And we know, and the community knows, that the only way that they can run that community hall is if they have a tax center. And here it says that it could happen in mid-2026, with the requisition starting in 2027, if it starts within the next 2 months. I want to know why hasn't it been started? We had a motion passed a couple of months ago now saying to get going on that immediately. It hasn't happened. Well, I wanted to say immediately, and that word was taken out. But it was very clear, I thought, that's an absolute priority for me, and to see that that's not at the top of the list is very disappointing. I'll leave it there right now. Thank you.
Right.
One of the questions was, when did we decide on the priority? I believe the Squamish Recreation Service Phase 2 is tied to a development timeline, and that's why the priority is there. And it was started, a lot of these were discussed prior to the other ones on the list. So Britannia Beach Communities Association being something requested recently, whereas some of the others have been on the list for a long time. And then I'm not sure, because I wasn't here, I was told that there was some sort of fuel prioritization that happened amongst the board at one point, and that's when the discussion occurred. I can answer that, why it's not on the report, I'm assuming you mean the quarterly report, correct? I will follow up with staff, and I'm sure that every service establishment proposed here is on that report for the next quarter, and I apologize for that.
Jenna, are you still on? No, okay, Jack?
It just seems to me that the Britannia Beach Community Association is prioritized, it's on the right side of the page, but it's got a high priority. I mean, I don't see it moving slower than, like, I think your intent is being realized. It doesn't seem like it's being put behind other things based on the estimated potential completion. So it doesn't seem like that intent of the board isn't being realized.
Well, what does it mean when it says if started within the next 2 months? What would make it happen? What would make that happen? What do we need to do to make that happen so it does start?
I think that's a fair question to staff for sure, but I'm just saying, I don't see this like where there's the intent of the board isn't being realized. It seems that the intent of the board is being realized, so it might be a question to ask about, like, what can we do to make it start quickly?
Okay, so that's my question.
Thank you. Without knowing without Director Clark here, who manages staff time, I can answer this to the best of my ability. And that's based on, we don't have the resources to do all of these all at the same time, and some of them are requiring actions right now. I would guess a good conversation here would be if the organization, if the board could prioritize those items on the wait list, that would help give direction on which ones to start first. As it says, if started, we have a lot of if started, and I think the request here would be, there's 4 there. Which one how would you order that?
Well, you know, to come to that Britannia Beach one again,
Okay.
we refused to take the lease because we didn't want to incur the financial risk, so on and so forth, and we were worried about who's going to run it. And we've really punted it back into the union. We don't have the ability to raise money other than sort of charging people for having a wedding there or a dinner there or whatever it is. They don't have the money to fully equip the hall. We just approved, the AD approved $30,000 to go towards that, but that's not even going to cover half of it. And as I say, that situation exists not through their fault. And not really through our fault, but it's because we didn't really understand what we were doing. If we'd have done the research back at the time when we were doing the rezoning and realized what the implications were of the 99-year lease and so on and so forth, we maybe could have done things differently and made sure that the developer provided some, not just the hall, but the equipment and so on and so forth, and we could have structured the financial thing differently. And it you know, it's nobody's fault that happened, other than, you know, we thought we were doing a good thing. It hasn't turned out that way. So I honestly think we have a responsibility now to move that to the absolute top of the list and get that, make sure that gets done, so that we don't leave that community in the lurch. And we don't leave, and we owe something to the developer as well, in that we, you know, we've got, well, I said we owe something to them. We've said we want something in place, they've put it in place, and now we've got to make sure it happens. So I would like to see that not left to when Kristen wants to do it, or when you know, I want us to direct that should be #1 priority.
Right. Thank you. I just want to clarify that staff don't take a personal opinion in prioritizing things. It takes note from this board and the order in which they comes and the priority and precedent nature of and I think that's outlined very clearly in the prioritization list. And happy to take direction from the board on prioritizing this. Thank you.
How could I word a resolution that would be acceptable? And last time I said immediately, and that wasn't acceptable. I would like to see it happen now.
Right.
I'm struggling with the word immediately because we have a lot of things on the timeline and the director of the department isn't here right now. So knowing I'm not in a position to go, hey, everyone, this is everything on the list. Choose what you want to take off if it starts tomorrow. I'm not in that position. I can say that the sense of urgency by this board is noted and asking to take these, can we come to an agreement of these 4 items? And it sounds like what's being proposed is those 4 that are on the wait list for Tanya Beach Community Association, there's a desire that it be the number 1.
Absolutely.
And then Sal, and then Janet.
Thank you for this report and outlining sort of the factors involved with it. If this, there's this, with if started, I think it's a great question to understand, like if started within 2 months, what, the timeline. These have different levels of, community engagement and draw on resources, moderate, minor, of those wait lists, if we wanted to prioritize those, if we prioritize the first 2, our first 2 choices, whatever they may be, are the other 2 just how far away are those? Or do we need to pick one that will be the fill the if? Like, is there one slot in those 2 months, or are there, like, how do you see that here, just to make sure that we're giving you, the staff, the clearest direction on this?
To be conservative, I would like to add, because there's 2 already in a row, this has burden on finance and strategic services. Finance, as we noted, has some very significant requirements around service establishments right now to raise a maximum requisition. My hope would be we pick 1 for the next 2 months. And I can come back with clarity, and just from a note with the board, if I could talk to the team, if there's room for others, I would, putting this in a priority of 4 will help us make that decision. When capacity builds for room for others, and it should there be tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And then in a practical sense, the requisition starting in 2027, saying this Britannia Beach piece, so make sure I understand that if we were to move that to highest slot on the wait list, and that's the priority. Would that change that locks in the 2027 requisition is the earliest that we'd be able to do it? Like we can't move that piece because of the rest of the process. So it's just the prioritization piece. So, okay, so then if there's another one there that has a start date in 2028, requisition will start in 2028, that has if started in the same two months. So if we bump that, then that number turns to 29 or point beyond because knocks out. Is that correct as well?
Thank you. Without speaking out of turn, that's how I understand it. That's how it is. It really depends. I think one of the questions is, there's an incredibly pressing project in the department of Catalina Creek, which has taken up a significant amount of staff time, which then has pushed back a lot of other priorities.
Okay, Sal, and then Jenna, and Chris.
Yes, thank you. The Goldbridge Fire Protection Society reached out to staff regarding the service establishment, and they have not received any feedback. So we need to, that's one, just add one more to it. But they want to get some information on, from staff on process. If that could be actioned, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Jenna.
Thank you. Through the chair, can you just clarify, is this the full list of requests for service establishment bylaws that exist, or are there others on the list somewhere?
That is my understanding, that when it comes to motions made at the board directing staff, this is the full list. My concern is I've heard that there's assumption that others are out there. And I would like to hear about that, so that we can do some investigation back to motions. I want to apologize, I did not hear Director Demare very well at all, so I'm not certain what the request.
You want to repeat your request there, Sal?
The Gold Bridge Fire Protection Society that was newly formed in 2023 has reached out to staff for information on developing a service establishment, and they have not received any feedback. I'd like staff to reach out to them. If you'd like the email address, I can forward it to you.
Thank you. Not necessary if they've reached out to staff, we can follow up on it. Just to clarify, it would end up on this list if the board, during that process, but right now it's not there because it's not yet in that process. So
Exactly. They just want some information on what the process would be.
Okay, Chris and Tony,
Was Director Stoner finished? I see your hand still up.
I believe she was.
Yeah, I'm okay for now. Thanks.
Sorry, is staff also looking for feedback on the level of engagement we would like on these? It's two-part. There's one, that question. Part of the reason I'm asking though, and maybe I'm mishearing from my colleague, but that there's a perception of no need, or like we're ready to go on the Britannia Beach. We don't need community engagement on that one, and maybe that one could be accelerated without engagement. So I guess looking for answers on both parts of that.
thank you. The first one, are we asking for a level of detail on staffing engagement? At this point, I don't see that here. Sometimes the the community engagement is based on legislation and what we have to do. So there's a requirement to reach out to the community at times. And I can follow up with later.
And can I just clarify with my colleague, Director Rainbow, is this one where you think there is a necessity for community engagement, or on the community association piece, we could just do the can't remember what it's called, the AAP, for example, and we wouldn't need to do a bunch of pre-engagement in your opinion?
Oh, the pre-engagement has been done.
I understand this doesn't necessarily bypass legislative requirements, just trying to understand.
Tony,
I'd like to make a resolution here. I might have the wording slightly wrong, but I wanted to say something like, given that Lillooet Lake Estates is paying for one full-time staff position, that the SLRD hire a consultant to prepare a service establishment for Britannia Beach Community Hall.
And this feels like moves beyond what our role is sort of explaining or directing through resolution how staff deliver the work. So if the CAO decides, you know what, that a consultant's gonna be more work for me than someone else in the organization, it just feels like we're moving into the role that's not ours.
Well, I said I wasn't sure of the wording, but I heard our CAO say that one of the reasons that things are piling up is because of the enormous amount of work at Lillooet Lake Estates. And we all recognize that because we've had reports recently. We know what's happening. But we were also told that we were receiving money from Lillooet Lake Estates to pay for part of that staff work. So if we could word this to say that, ask the CAO to consider hiring I'm not sure, but yeah, I just see that as a way of maybe moving forward a little quicker than we are at the moment.
So I'll throw in, like, I've brought this up numerous times over the years. Prairie Meadows Fire Department, they need to have their service area upgraded, whatever, and that's been sort of talked about and on the books for a number of years. And we need a funding source for those folks other than Area C amenity funds, because that eventually runs out. Also for transit, Reed Road, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. And that's only me in Area C, where we could certainly use a consultant to speed this process up and help staff out. So I'll just, that would be my recommendation also. Thank you.
So I feel like, there's some good concerns and thoughts being brought up here. We've gone way beyond what this report has asked us for or come to us with. So, and I don't think we should ignore the comments we've heard here today, but my suggestion would be that we give some direction on the prioritization of the list in front of us. It sounds like there are other service areas that there might be a desire to have established. I think, the CEO can take away some of what she's heard here today and talk to Director Clark in terms of what these establishments could look like, whether consultants could be brought in, instead of putting that all on the spot right now, perhaps that's information that you can discuss with your staff, with Director Clark, and come back with some suggestions. In the meantime, I feel like we provide prioritization of what's in front of us. Let's hear how more can be dealt with, because I agree, there are some out there that haven't been motioned that probably that there's an expectation are going to happen. So I think it would be good for everybody to lay those out. So I think that might be a conversation that we could have with Director Clark here, and maybe give you some time to come up with some suggestions for how we can move some of these service establishments. So I would focus on a resolution.
Would you like to make a resolution?
Well, I don't know if there's.
Before we move ahead.
I don't know if there's one made or not. If not, I would look at a resolution that just prioritizes the 4 on the wait list. And then have staff come back with some more.
Prioritize Britannia Beach Community Association over and against the other on wait list. Yeah.
That I would consider that in the moment. Everything else, I feel like there's more for everybody to bring to the table.
So
Time for staff.
I started saying that I was thinking of a resolution. I'm happy to just sort of, I've raised the issue and CEO's heard it, you've heard it, so on. But I would like to make a resolution that we take off put to the bottom of the list, the Squamish Can and the Squamish Library, because the chances of those, if we spend a lot of time preparing those, the chances of getting those approved right now, I would say are 0. So I would just they're occupying a position on that list that they shouldn't be right now. Somebody listing is.
Well, I struggle with that a little bit. I'm not sure how we know that. I mean, the library is, unless Britannia Beach is building a library in the next couple of years that we don't know about, and to me, this is already established as a service that was used by Area D members, and that it needs to be looked at. I haven't seen a lot of service establishment AAPs come back with a whole. I think I've seen one in my years come back with a whole lot of protests. So. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're about to go down into another muddy waters here. Yeah.
We've got Jenna and then.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I'm happy to help support elevating the Britannia Beach Community Center as one of the top priorities for those that are on the wait list. I would be very disappointed to see the Squamish Food Policy Council one come off the list. I think that's been requested for a long time, and Director Rainbow, I think we've talked about trying to find a more secure funding source for that so that it's not up to pilt year over year. So I'm grateful to see that that's on the short list. In terms of the library, whether that is better tied in with the phase 3 of the recreation services more broadly, I'm open to that conversation of how best we approach that. But I think we continue to need to have a further dialogue, I think, between at least let's start with the electoral area director and us from the Squamish and perhaps our staff to figure out how we move that forward. But I don't think kicking that down road is helpful here. I think keeping it on the list and starting to have those conversations is important, especially because the phase 2 component is tied to a portion of the Furry Creek development getting, I can't remember if it's occupancy or adoption, but there's real implications if we don't move this conversation forward for some of the development in Area D. So I would like to see that still on the list. Thank you.
Heather,
May I make a suggestion of what I'm hearing today? If I was gonna, without a resolution, go back, what I'm hearing today is that looking for a order of prioritization, it would likely be in this order. Britannia Beach Community is, notwithstanding the fact that the two that are already in action will remain in action. Britannia Beach Community Association, Squamish Recreation Service, with the option to possibly consider bringing Squamish Public Library into that to be more efficient and effective with our time. Squamish Food Policy Council. Should we not be able to?
I think that I'm actually gonna, I'll move that the board provide the following direction to staff in relation to the prioritization list as presented. So in order is Community Center, Britannia Beach Community Association, sorry, followed by the Squamish Food Policy Council, and then I put the library and the phase 3 discussion to happen at similar timing, just because they may or may not be connected. So I think keeping those together makes sense. Sorry, I'm going into comments now. That's my motion. And if it's seconded, I'll speak more fulsomely to it. I think that I agree that the Britannia Beach Community Association piece, I think is really important, and I'd like to be able to fill that gap. And I know that we've heard that it's important to the area director as well. So I think moving that ahead makes sense. That's a physical space. Folks in the community are trying to action it. Like, I think this is quite critical that we get that organization as well on some solid footing. I think the Food Policy Council is work that has been happening together and is a priority. And we've expressed that through supporting it in other ways. So I think that's why it slots in number 2. The broad discussions around rec services and potentially library being in that same category, I think are important discussions to have. And I acknowledge that the things on this list are about working through exactly those issues. So they're not, by the fact that it's on this list does not mean that any particular outcome, except that we need to really dig into this and understand what it should be or what it not to be. So and I do think those discussions are important, because I think that leaving them hanging, my concern with this prioritization, although I moved it, is that leaving those conversations hanging leave uncertainty for around this table, and leaves uncertainty for the community about how, and the affected parties, and how we're going to address these matters. But I do agree that there's urgency in these other pieces, so I'm happy to move them. I would like to understand where these now lay, given this prioritization, and see how quickly we can move through this list. But that'll be for a future update that I know will be forthcoming as we move through this work together. So that's where I am on this, and thank you to Director Richmond for support on the motion, and look forward to the discussion.
Director Rainbow.
Yeah, was that seconded, that motion? Yeah. Okay. I just point out that the Squamish Food Policy Council one and the Squamish Library ones, I initiated them, and I still support them. And with the Squamish Library, I've just arranged for some money, a grant to Hillary to engage the public, not just in Britannic Beach and Ferry Creek, but in the Upper Squamish as well, about library services and to sort of get a sense of what the community would like to see in terms of expanded services and what they would be prepared to pay. And I think that's an important, we get that done before we do anything else. You know, if we get a resounding no from the community that they're not prepared to do anything, then this is the wrong time for it. Anyway, so I'm okay with those things. I was talking about Squamish Recreation Service in my first term here. It's something that I
Okay,
told.
I found this on the web, right? I'm Squamish Mayor.
Talking about Squamish Bear.
Don't shut her
You've
up.
been talking about the Squamish Mare too much.
Okay. So let me come back to the one that's bothering me there. The one that I'm really concerned about, that we had awful, you know, I know I probably lost my temper at one point, is this Squamish Recreation Service Phase 2, which is tied in with the Ferry Creek zoning. We have 16 units, I think was approved yesterday, and you know, that's going to generate $80,000.
Are we debating the point of order? Are we debating the merit of that one right now? Or?
No, I'm just saying, the way, I'd like to know where we're at with that. What have staff decided? What's the progress with that? I know that there's a clause in there that says things about being developed in Squamish that are for the benefit of Ferry Creek, and again, the question's never been answered. Who decides whether it is a benefit to Ferry Creek residents or not? Is that Squamish that decides that? Is it the SLRD that decides it? When does the community get to hear about it? So I just want to know where we stand with that.
Heather,
On the report, under attachment C, there's light, but some bit of status on where some of these are in it. So instead of being actioned, it'll say phase 2 is being actioned. It's at the information gathering stage. No, that's light though, recognizing that. And then more details on what the phases are and where they stem from under the Horizon report, the board meeting notes.
we've got a resolution that was moved and seconded. I'm gonna call the question.
I have an additional comment, I just want to leave that hanging. I think that in my initial comments on this, this is about resolving those matters. So the attachment, I found that attachment C quite helpful and a reminder that was direction of the board, but it is about resolving those things, and none of these things are set on autopilot and do come back to the board for the final decision around what it looks like and how we proceed and should proceed to get it over the line. So none of the discussions here are determining an outcome of these. It's directing the staff work to resolve those issues and bring them to the board for final approval. So I just want to be clear what we are discussing and the pieces that are important but are to come. So to address my colleagues' concerns.
Yeah, and so I just
Okay.
highlight that as a concern.
Yeah.
Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Sorry, Chair.
No,
I can do it anyway. Can't believe I'll be that guy. Do we want a motion to, like, there was discussion about other potential service establishments that directors would like to see in their areas. There was discussion about whether they can be supported through contracting. Do we want to have a resolution that, or is direction sort of set that the CEO has the opportunity to speak to Director Clark, put together some sort of update, I don't want to report, but some sort of update so that we can inform that and maybe have a conversation around resourcing some of these service establishments. So I just don't wanna leave those comments hanging out there as well.
You're gonna make that motion?
So I wanna see how it best suits staff down in terms of getting there.
I think at this point, there's no need for a motion. That's part of the job as a CAO and the senior leadership team is swim laning and ensuring there's enough capacity to accomplish what the board's setting out to accomplish, and then come back here if we feel there's some more resources needed, whether in the budgeting sources or earlier when it comes to consulting. Consulting are.
So I'm happy. And I understood, and I'm happy to leave all that in your hands. It's more about I just wanna make sure there's an expectation for some of the directors that service establishments that have been discussed in the past, but haven't been motioned and therefore aren't on this list, that they get considered. And understanding that capacity contractors, I don't know how, what works. My point being, I don't wanna leave those out there hanging. So if this is just a way of saying, hey, when your director in charge of this file sort of comes back, we can have a conversation on it, so that there's an opportunity for those directors to avoid it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a thought on how we can collect that information in a way that.
We don't need a motion, we're all good on it.
I think, do that, Director Richmond, and we'll put it on the agenda for the next EAD for the area directors to identify anything within their areas, and that gives some information to staff.
I'd like to hear the conversation. We've had so much of the conversation here at this table, and then it's gonna come back for prioritization, and I won't have heard all your individual comments during that discussion. So to me, let's continue the conversation at this table would be my preference.
Yeah. Okay, 9.6 is the request for decision, approval of the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District's 2024 audited financial statement. Welcome, Paul.
Good morning, everyone. This report is requesting the approval and adoption of the 2024 audit financial statements for the SLRD. There aren't a ton of changes from 2024 and 2023. I will highlight two minor adjustments that were kind of briefly discussed yesterday. The first is that task revenue for our EOC reimbursements is now represented under provincial grants rather than miscellaneous revenue. It has no overall impact to the financial statements other than reclassifying where that revenue is shown. And the second is we adopted PS 3400 revenue. The only revenue source that was impacted was our building permits, which are now being recognized over the life of the building permit rather than at the time of sale. Otherwise, everything else is pretty similar to 2023 other than the figures. I'll open up for any questions.
Any questions from anyone? Want to make a motion, Jeff?
Thank you.
Motion to receive?
Second.
Second.
Approved as
Yeah.
presented.
Okay.
As presented.
Got it. And that the chair and treasurer, director of finance be authorized to sign.
Okay, moved and seconded, call a question, all in favor? Opposed, motion carried.
I want to speak, but if I can just make a comment now.
That's.
Is that just accepting an audited financial statement is easy because it's been audited, it's had the oversight, and I really appreciate all the work to keep us on side to that and be able to provide our community with certainty of the funds that we've been tasked with managing have been done so in a responsible way. So thank you to you and your team for the work on this.
Yeah, thank you. It was a team effort for sure, so.
I want to make a comment afterwards as well. And I thought that.
It's not going to change my vote.
No, I've forgotten the name. What's the gentleman's name that Paul, wasn't it? Paul, yeah. I thought he did a really good job of explaining something which could be quite dry and
There's a lot of accounting jargon, yeah.
Can we send him a note and just say that we appreciate it and thank you? I think it'd be nice to do.
Sure, I can do that.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
What do we need to?
Zipping right through.
Yeah.
Are we gonna zip through?
9.7.
We have Celia and Rowena here.
Lunch is in 7 minutes.
Do that.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Request for decision, organizational GIS asset data assessment grant application.
Is it
9.7.
Pass.
Celia and Rowena here.
Lunch is in 60 minutes.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Hello, would you like a little
Request for
summary of?
decision, organizational GIS asset data.
Technical difficulty.
Somebody's playing YouTube.
Celia and Rowena, can you please just check to make sure that you're not live streaming? I'm watching the live stream. We're getting a little bit of feedback into the.
Summary of?
Organizational GIS asset data.
Technical difficulty.
At least it sounds local government related.
Siri talking about the mayor of Squamish?
That's hilarious.
Hey Siri.
Tell me more about this.
Celia, we're getting feedback when we unmute you. Can you please ensure that you've closed what you were watching, which I believe may have been the meeting live stream? Okay, thank you so much. You can unmute yourself. Appreciate it.
Motion to receive.
Hi, would the board like a little summary of this request for decision?
Motion to receive.
What is
Yes, we
everybody?
would. We'd like.
We'd like a little summary, brief.
Yes, okay. Through the board, I'm Celia and I'm an accountant at the finance department. We put together a grant application to the UBCM Asset Management Planning Program. The goal is to get funding for a GIS asset data assessment. So right now, most of SLRD staff and contractors can't view asset data on a map. We do have a bit of GIS data for our services, but it's very limited. The data formats are not consistent and not everyone who needs it can access it. And part of the reason for that is because we don't have enough software licenses, but the bigger issue is that we don't yet have a full GIS system in place, or call it an overall GIS strategy. So if the board is supportive of the submission of a grant application and we do get the grant, we will hire consultants to come in and assess what we currently have of GIS technology, our asset data, and the processes we use. We are then hoping that they will give us a solid recommendation for a software strategy for the organization, how long we can expect it to take to collect the missing asset data, and what sort of processes we should put in place to manage everything after we have new software licenses and the training have been rolled out. And we see this as a great opportunity right now to do because we do have the assessment of the 911 Next Gen as well, and that includes GIS assessment. So there's potentially some economy of scale to do this for our assets at the same time. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, or Rowena is here as well to answer.
I just like to make a recommendation, please. There's a second.
Second it. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ready? Yeah, 9.8, request for decision, partnership with Village of Pemberton for public notification and evacuation route planning grants.
Yep. Good afternoon, or sorry, good morning, Chair. Soon to be good afternoon. Actually, it is good afternoon. I'll be quick here. I know it's right before lunch, so yeah, my name is Andrew McFetridge. I'm an emergency management technician here at the SLRD. Today I'm bringing forward a request for decision to you guys to endorse SLRD staff to apply for the 2025 CEPF public notification and evacuation route planning grant. We will be applying as a co-applicant alongside the Village of Pemberton. We'll be leading this application and project. The SLRD alongside the Village of Pemberton is pursuing this grant to further develop evacuation frameworks in the Pemberton Valley to better prepare for potential integrated mass evacuations from this area. This project will be seeking to hire a consultant to review the current evacuation frameworks in place, identify areas of improvement, and develop an updated framework that will be validated and tested through a functional exercise. Happy to answer any questions about the RFD, if anybody has any.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone? Would you like to move to receipt?
No. Is that
Recommendation.
recommendations that we approve staff time to support the VLP
Okay,
in this project? And
are you gonna make a motion to that?
can we do the two that?
The three.
Or three that?
Three that.
Do all three of them.
Yeah.
at the same time.
I'll second all three.
Okay. Moved and seconded, call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Look how eager we got.
Beaver's here.
Okay, 9.9, request for decision, Seton-Shalaf Fire Service Area, replacement equipment and supplies.
Perfect. Mark Phillips, Director of Protective Services. We're asking for $10,000 of Area B PILT funds to provide to Shalaf to purchase fire protection equipment in support of the Seton-Shalaf Fire Service Area. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I would be happy to move the recommendations.
Moved and seconded, call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Perfect. Yes, we'll recess for lunch. Do we want to?
Right before the chair's verbal?
Yeah.
That's when the commercial break comes. That's when the commercial break comes.
Is we're going to recess to get our lunch, bring it back to the boardroom, and then have a working lunch and reopen to the public. Call this meeting back to order. And we are on Chair's verbal report. Very glad to say that I don't have anything to report.
Oh, lost suspense.
Jack. 10.2, asbestos testing, update on Gun Lake wildfire debris funding contribution area A, Director DeMere.
Thank you. This program was highly successful and just over $50,000 of the $80,000 that was allotted to it was utilized. And I know that the property owners that utilized that funding definitely appreciated it. So I'd like to move the two recommendations.
Second that?
Any questions from anyone? Move seconded, call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carries. Thanks, Sal. 10.3, electrical area director's expenses, Director Rainbow.
Yeah, what do I want to say? What's to say, residential,
right there.
whereas I'm having trouble with this, this is a new computer, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I'll read it. That the board support electoral area D director travel expenses claims in the total amount of $354.53 for the following. And it lists 1, 2, 3, 4 events that took place. Okay, moved and seconded. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
No, could I just propose another motion that's related to this?
Yeah.
This covers some expenses that I incurred through my work as an electoral area director, which and you could expect a report like this every month between now and when the remuneration bylaw is reviewed. So I'd like to propose a and it's not just me, this is for any electoral area director that is traveling more than 40 kilometers. To be able to claim that, they have to have approval of the board. So my resolution would be to authorize the CAO to, again, the wording you have to authorize the CAO to, geez, I had it all written down. Yeah, whereas the remuneration bylaw is under current review and the travel expenses of directors must be supported by a board resolution. And whereas travel claims of EA directors are incurred on regional district business, therefore be it resolved that the board support these claims until the remuneration bylaw has been reviewed.
I'll second that.
May I just have some staff input on that one?
Sure.
At this point, the bylaw being interpreted is that anything that's outside of the definition of meeting that is very specific, where the board has been assigned a role, Fraser Basin Council, it comes here to define, to get it approved. It's meant to be as quickly as this is a flow through. I need to check to ensure that this motion, based from the interpretation of the bylaw, this motion basically overrules the bylaw as it's written. And I would just like clarification if we can do that. And so if we could maybe we can come back to it after a recess and I can get clarification that that can be done.
Well, yeah, I guess I don't see how this is such a difficult thing. We've been doing this, like I've been doing this from back in the Linda Flynn days. And it was anything, if I was going to meetings related to Area C.
Point of order, but we've just been given some advice that we want to find out whether we can do what we set out to do, not whether we should. So I'm hearing a case of why we should, but I'm still not clear to me whether we can. So I would prefer that we take a break. Let staff come back with a response whether we can, and then we can debate whether we should, which is what we're here to debate. Whether we can or not, it's likely not up for debate. So that's fine. If we can get that, that's.
Here, I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in. Jack was here back in the day. We developed, the elected area directors used to get somewhere in the neighborhood of $16,000.
His point is a good one. Like, this debate is important, but like, maybe we're just not allowed to do that. And then once we know whether we're not allowed to do that or not, then we can have the debate. Like, I think we should have the debate, but just, and when she's had a chance to look at it.
I didn't know we're going to get into this. It's a matter of interpretation. I read the bylaw one way, it should be no problem at all. Staff read it another way. I've just started reading it another way. It's been read the way that I understood it for the last 8 years. And now we've changed how the staff have changed how they interpret it.
Motion to recess the meeting.
Yes, second.
But
You didn't call
Moved and seconded. All the question, all in favor, motion carried. I'd really like to call this meeting back to order and carry on with the discussion.
So one of the question was, can this motion overrule the bylaw? And in consultation, which we're happy to speak to further, this is about delegating authority to the CAO, and that needs to be a bylaw. It needs to be updated in the bylaws. There is the option that the board delegate authority to themselves to approve these sight unseen. It's not recommended. There is that option. However, if the CAO is meant to sign requests that don't fall under the remuneration bylaw, and that is, and Director Belstrom's here to read it out specifically if needed, that is those meetings where the director hasn't been appointed and isn't SLRD committee meeting, et cetera, then the bylaw outlines that it goes to this board for approval and not to the CAO.
Question. May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay, look at that. Yeah.
He's the one that
Yeah.
He's the boss.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about meetings. Now, as far as when I read that bylaw, there are meetings with a capital M. That's these meetings, board meeting, committee of the whole, EAD, and any other organization that we're appointed to, so Fraser Basin Council, whatever it might be, those are official meetings with a capital letter. And that covers the whole board. And the rest of it really only deals with the electoral area directors. Because, and what it covers is the work that we do as directors. Now, so if I drive up to Black Tusk and meet with a couple of people from their strata council, that's a meeting for me, with a small m. It's part of my work. I can't be an electoral area director without doing that kind of travel. And as far as I'm concerned, this bylaw covers that. It says that we can automatically be recompensed for those kinds of expenses on regional district business. If the argument is that it's not regional district business, well, to me, that's nonsense. Anything that we do as electoral area directors in our areas or even outside the area, it's regional district business. Who else am I working for? I just do not understand why this interpretation has changed.
Mike and then Jack.
And when is the compensation? Like, when are we gonna review the bylaw formally?
Thank you. It's scheduled for the fall to come to the board.
So we have like 3 months of these having to approve it through this system here. I'm not denying that the work you do isn't for the regional district or shouldn't be compensated for it. It seems to me that we're gonna be dealing with this in 3-4 months. In the meantime, it comes to the board, it takes 10 seconds, it gets approved, and that's gonna take less time than going through a whole process.
So some direction now then, please. Do I bring this to anything I do? I bring it to the board first and then put it on my expense claim? Well, what's the process? And this is not just me we're talking about. I'm speaking as an electoral area director, but it's going to affect Vivian and Russell and Sal as well. Do you really want to have those every month?
At this point, if you're asking me, and if this is a direct reply, then the answer is I don't care if I see those until October when we actually review this bylaw formally and we deal with it in one chunk. To start doing interim measures for 3-4 months seems like a waste of time to me. I'm just trying to save us time. I'm not trying to cut your expenses. I think those expenses can come forward. They've been coming forward for years.
Yeah, exactly. I've been coming forward for years, and all of a sudden we've changed the interpretation of the bylaw. Bylaw's been in place for 8 years.
Again, I see us being dealt with in a few months, so I'm happy with it and as is.
Jack and then Colin. Actually, Bill, we'll go Colin first, then Jack.
Yeah, through the chair, I was just gonna make a comment on that policy and try and provide some clarity. The meetings are clearly divided into 2 separate sections. There's section 1, which is the SLRD meetings, and the meetings that you're appointed to attend, and those do not require to come to the board. Section 2 encompasses all other meetings, including the ones for regional district business, and those are the ones that are required to come to the board. My view of the reason for that policy is so that there's transparency into the non-appointed meetings that directors are attending. As Heather mentioned, I think if the board would like to change that policy, then there is room to amend it when we review it in a few months, but that's just my interpretation of the policy.
So my recommendation would be, as Director Richard said, we just carry on as is until, so you put your expense forms in and they don't have to come to the board. We just do it as we have done for the last, 10 years that I've been here. And then come October, November, we will have this formalized in a new policy. Jenna.
Thank you. Through the chair, I think, hey, Chair, your interpretation of, and my interpretation of what Director Richmond was proposing are different. But I was going to say that I was aligned with Director Richmond that we just carry on for the next 3 or 4 months until a more robust update of this bylaw can come forward. I hear the challenge. And while I do think it is more acute for electoral area directors, I think that it also applies to all directors because some of us do travel if we want to get a sense of something that is happening in an electoral area because we are all making decisions for the regional district on behalf of the regional district. And so I don't think it is exclusive to electoral area directors, but I think I appreciate staff's interpretation of the bylaw here. And I think carrying on as we are here today, that you bring, for transparency's sake, requests for remuneration of, or sorry, reimbursement of meetings with a small m to the board, and then we can forward those on to the staff, and then we can be on our merry way for the next few months, and then we can review that in a more fulsome way with the bylaw. Thank you.
Just, I just want to make sure I understand where we are. We've had a motion that's been moved and seconded. So the overall concept, I'm not in support of the motion. I am supporting resolving this issue because we all deserve clarity in both in the directors involved, potential future directors, staff. So it's not in a point of, we're not putting them in a point of conflict if there's a misunderstanding or a misalignment of different interpretations of the bylaw. I think we've, as a board, have expressed support for these expenses through the amount of time that we gave the last decision, which was, yep, okay, away we go. I think maybe it's likely another bylaw change to have this portion appear on the consent agenda. So if there's any concerns from the board, they can pull it and look at it. I don't know. It's usually captured in the procedure bylaw. Maybe that's not an answer. But I do think that given that we're bridging a short gap, which is only a few meetings, you can even hold your expenses if you don't want to go through the process for those 3 meetings and submit them under the new regime wherever we land there. I don't know what that is, but I do think we need that clarity. I think this motion actually creates friction elsewhere that we know exists and we're aiming to resolve as a board already. So I think we need to stay where we are. I won't be supporting the motion. However, we really do need to resolve this. I understand that the tension that it causes. I can feel it in the room as we're sitting here. And we're setting out to do that. And we'll do that as a group. So I don't think any interim measure is appropriate at this point. So I won't be supporting the motion.
Sorry, and I just want to make sure I was aligned with Director Richmond's motion, which my understanding is to, for the next few months, proceed with the current staff interpretation of the existing bylaws and then to
The only motion that we have, sorry.
No, I propose the motion.
Yeah.
And that's fine. If the ruling is that it's inappropriate, then I can put it.
But sorry,
There was no motion.
I didn't.
okay.
It was a comment.
Who seconded that? I don't remember that being.
Russell.
Yeah, Russell said.
Oh.
So we were discussing then what you put forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would prefer the direction that I heard from my colleague, I think, so I would vote against the motion on the floor.
So may I ask the question again? This motion that was just passed about approving those expenses. Do I need to do anything with that now? Or will that be, does that go to finance and I get paid, or what happens?
Thank you. As it's been passed, it goes to finance as a motion and it gets paid.
So there's nothing else for me to do. Okay, so the second question would be that I think, I can't remember who made the point now, but what if I save up being conscious of staff time and all that kind of stuff. If I save up 6 months collection of expenses and submit it all in one go?
Thank you. I believe as long as it doesn't go over a year, as we're trying to manage a fiscal year, that is fine. I believe the expenses would still apply to the bylaw in place now, even if there was a new bylaw, but I would have to get clarification.
It's not a new bylaw this year, is that? Be serious. We know what it's like, how long it takes to get things done. Well, that's fine, then if I can just collect them all up, I will, because I don't want to be doing 2 sets of expense claims every month.
All right,
I understand what you're saying, but I agree that we should wait until September or whatever is coming back and look at the bylaw then. I think it's not just for the area directors, but all the directors, as Director Stoner mentioned. And just to give an example, if I don't catch a ride with Director Birch Jones or Director Demare to come to like our First Nation relations with Gwen, that training, I had to go through a different process. And I think that needs to be looked at for all the directors, you know, so yeah.
so the only thing, I'll get to you, the only thing I'm gonna say is, excuse me, when this new policy or direction is put forward, let's make sure it's not open to interpretation. Because that, I mean, we can have 20 interpretations of a piece of, or a bylaw. Let's have it very cut and dried, to the point, and then there's no Jack's arguing with me or I'm arguing with him, or, you know, we just need to have a bylaw that's very easy to read, and that's it.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I just wanna highlight that, and it's a bit of a tangent, but I think it's important. We had a couple items on this agenda, one of them I didn't support, but it came out of a resolution from just 1 or 2 meetings ago. So we've had a few bylaws come through like the next meeting, and so I think we need to recognize, and it's come up earlier in this meeting, that staff work at the pace and the priority directed by this council, and I see staff doing that. And to the degree things aren't moving as quickly or the direction we would want, that's up to us then to clarify our direction. So I'll just keep that there. Thank you.
Okay, now would somebody please enlighten me on what the motion is we're actually voting on now? Director Richmond.
The motion was for delegation. It's not my motion, it's Tony's own motion.
I don't mind. Can I just remove that motion? Or?
Seconded.
Russell
It
seconded.
was second.
I second it.
Well, then just.
Go down and kill it.
And what was it?
It was defeated. Cool question.
Okay,
There was just an ask from one of the members what the motion was, so I don't feel comfortable calling a question if there's someone just voiced that they don't know what the motion is.
The motion was. Whereas the remuneration bylaw is under current review and travel expenses of directors must be supported by a board resolution. And whereas travel claims of VA directors are incurred on regional district business, therefore be it resolved that by the board to support these claims until the remuneration bylaw has been reviewed.
We don't need to do that.
No,
Just call the question.
call the question. Move to second to call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
So it's defeated.
Motion defeated. Now we don't need anything?
no. Now we're on to correspondence for action.
Can we get a clarification for the record?
Excuse me, can I please ask the board to put up their hands so that I can see all that were opposed for the record?
Maybe it's
Unanimous.
Thank you, that's all I needed.
Okay, 11.2. Request for funding Lillooet Agricultural and Food Society.
So moved.
Moved by Jack, seconded by Vivian.
Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. You guys are doing great work.
Yeah.
11.3, invitation to comment Trans Mountain, condition 35, fate and behavior of bitumen research report. You're moving that?
Receive it, motion received.
Motion received?
Yeah, I'd like to comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is frustrating. I think it is something that's important to our region, especially part of it that's on house sound. But as every time these things come to us, the timelines and the capacity to respond adequately, it's just, I'm not sure how we do that. I'm sort of thinking that instead of responding to this directly, maybe it's more valuable to provide feedback to the EAO assessment process with engagement on the updated processes going by, and maybe that's the best place we can submit feedback of like this process and ability for municipal governments to provide feedback to local governments is still completely inadequate. So we'll handle it as part of, if we can have an opportunity to provide feedback into the assessment process, maybe write a letter as opposed to this specific project ask.
Any other questions? You want to make a motion to that effect?
If that's helpful.
I second that,
Second that? Okay.
yeah, I think that's.
Moved in second and call the question, all in favor? Opposed, motion carried.
We had a motion to receive on the table too. Remember that motion? Okay.
Okay, 11.4, invitation for comment. Metro Vancouver, Metro 2050 Type 2 proposed amendment, City of Delta. Motion received.
I'd like comment.
Go ahead.
So this is again, moving AL land out. So I looked at these two pieces of property and I know this is not our decision. It's without, it's not, we can't vote on this, but it does invite the SLRD board to comment. And, I'm totally against taking any more land out of the ALR. I think that, these two pieces of land, it was a big chunk of land when I looked at it, and the middle part has been taken out for housing. These are townhouses, they're not building high, they're townhouses, and it's only a matter of time before more chunks are taken out. And my comment would be is before any more land is taken out of the ALR, I think that, we really need to look at if we're gonna take something out, we need to put it back in somewhere else. Because I just feel like the slow erosion of ALR land will eventually, in 20 years, our grandkids or whatever will be coming back to us saying, where did it all go? What have we done with it? So for me, I don't support this, and my comment would be, if a piece is taken out, it needs to be replaced by another suitable piece of land. Thank you.
I'll make a comment. So I totally agree with you. But the problem is, every time they take a piece out, there's no piece to put back in. Because like, especially in the lower mainland, and here, stay in this valley, we've got quality farmland. Same down there, same in Delta, in Abbotsford, out in that area. Now Abbotsford, I believe, just got like 1,025 acres taken out to expand their commercial industrial zone. So when that starts happening, it was probably a bunch of blueberry bushes or something, which is fine. I mean, that's great agriculture, right? So, yeah, and I totally agree with you. Where does it end? I mean, I grew up in Richmond and it used to be all farmland. There's not a lot left now, so. Most of that is all owned by developers who bought it 50 years ago.
Exactly.
So
I know.
I agree with you completely. So you'd like to make a motion to?
Well, it says a motion for comment, but I just think that, and maybe this is something that I need to take to UBCM or something further to that, because I just don't, like I said, I feel like it's a slow erosion. It's a chunk here, it's a chunk here, it's a chunk there, it's a chunk there. And they're building these, if you look at these sites, they're building townhouses where, if you need housing, because I mean, of course we need housing, that's just as important, but that's great if in 20 or 30 years, we've got all this housing and no food source. I mean, our kids are gonna be going, well, what the hell, I think it's important to say something about this, because I don't support
Chris.
ALR land.
Yeah, in general, I'm in alignment and would support some comment expressing our general concern about removing LLR land. I think it is worth, and maybe including a comment, when I read the report, it implied that the ALR land had low value, that it wasn't good agricultural land, but I didn't really find any information to support that one way or another, so it's hard to assess that. Maybe there's a piece about that, but I would support some comment of concern as opposed to opposition, maybe.
Good.
Just a administrative thought. This was sent to staff who had no concerns. I think the idea that the land might not be valuable when it comes to sourcing food is one of them. And that this is, as you said, sometimes seen. I really like the suggestion, if it might suggest that it be a UBCM item. We just got our notice to bring to UBCM as a concern, to bring to staff or to political representatives as an overall concern. Without or staff come back with a report about the details of this, although there is a deadline for comment.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the comments and the concerns that have been raised by my colleagues here. I echo them. I too read the report. The recommendation that the land is not very fertile comes directly from the ALC. And I would hold their understanding of the farmability of that land higher up than anybody around this table. No, didn't mean that in a negative way. But they are the experts there. And just looking at the timeline in terms of actually getting our staff to respond here, it's pretty short. And I feel like it's pretty low value, low impact for putting some staff time into it at this point. We have previously responded to Metro requests that have been bigger in size or more impactful. So I'm not totally opposed to the idea, but I just feel like on this particular one, it's maybe not worth our time and effort for staff. Thanks.
Thank you. I think I share the concerns overall about ALR land, and I think whether the land itself considered here is fertile or not, we know that there needs to be processing facilities, all sorts of things that don't to support that farm use. That is why many pieces like this are in the. I do think that the most powerful action we can take here actually is keeping that front of mind when these decisions come to us. And on this particular one, I don't know the rest of the nuance. There's a lot of nuance here that we may not be aware of. I agree with Councillor Stoner as far as comment. There was probably some other way to actually impact this issue more broadly. So for those reasons, I would just move. Is receipt the recommendation here, or is there? Yeah, so I'll move receipt of the letter.
Moved and seconded.
I'm good with that because I'll take it up with the agriculture too.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Decision on late business. Oh.
Full item from the consent agenda, 5.2.1.
So that was the letter from the Ministry of Housing and Municipal Affairs regarding preparing for potential drought conditions in 2025.
Yeah, and I just wanted an opportunity for a tiny rant. I found this very triggering. We're coming into, our hearing April's super dry, and the ministry's asking us to warn citizens about water restrictions that may be likely. At the same time, they are suddenly finding all kinds of new support for more fracking, which poisons a bunch of water, and driving an industry that drives the thing that's causing the problem in the first place. And we seem to be racing down south to the absolute bottom in terms of our future. It's incredibly frustrating. I think it's something that maybe we take up again at UBCM and other channels, but I just found this particular letter for me was offensive given the other provincial policies we're seeing. So I would just say that and move receipt.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Moved and seconded. Call a question. All in favor? Motion carried. Decision on late business,
Russell, could I make a comment on the last
go right ahead.
item? In the report that they have there, our area is at 63% of normal snowpack. And on a daily basis, I look at the Green Mountain snow pillow, BC Hydro snow pillow. We have about 5 or 6 of them in the Bridge River Valley, basically in Area A. And it is 2023 was the lowest ever at this time of year. And last year was not much better. And this year it's following the path of those other 2 years. We're already really dry here. And Lillooet will be even drier. So it is definitely a concern for our area. And just going back to the PUP process, the amount of fires that we've had in the northern SLRD has been quite a bit. And not having well, you can just leave my mind now. But anyway, the trailer with all the equipment in and up here, it's got to be a priority for us. The Gun Lake Fire has enough equipment to do about 12, 15 homes. That's still not enough. And we need to have the resources up here ready to go for BC wildfire so that when something happens, it can be acted. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. A decision on late business? There is none. Late business? None. Director's notice of motion? None. And we will now adjourn this meeting because
No,
Moving to 16.
no,
go to
16.
16. Go to the
oh, okay. So recess, all right. So recommendations from the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District Committee of the Whole of April 24th.
There were none.
Oh. Okay. Squamish-Lillooet Regional District closed, or district board meeting closed meeting. So we're gonna close it now.
Close it. Motion close.
Okay. Moved and seconded, call the question on favor.